In 2024, a $2.2 million infrastructure deal ground to a complete stop because of a $35 bank fee charged to a 9-year-old boy in 1983. The boy's grandfather had kept every document, tracked every acquisition, and waited 41 years, and the bank never saw him coming. The lawyer's name was Darren Holt, and on a Tuesday morning in March 2024, he made 4 phone calls in 11 minutes. The first was to a developer. The second was to a regional bank vice president. The third was to Harbor National's legal team. The fourth was to a man named Floyd Mercer, age 71, who lived outside Hardin County, Ohio, in a house with a metal roof and a gravel driveway, and who answered the phone on the third ring. Darren said the infrastructure project was frozen. Floyd said he knew. Darren said there were $72 million tied to this quarter. Floyd said he knew that too. Darren asked if Floyd understood what was at stake. Floyd said yes. Then Floyd set the phone down on the kitchen table and let Darren keep talking. He walked to the window. He looked at the driveway. He stood there for a moment. Then he picked the phone back up and said he'd been waiting 41 years for this call. He thanked Darren for finally making it. Then he hung up. The spring of 1983 was dry in Hardin County. The auction was held in the county building on a Saturday, with 4 folding tables pushed together and a coffee pot on a card table near the door that nobody refilled after 9 in the morning. Floyd Mercer sat in the 3rd row. He had driven 40 minutes to get there. He wore the same coat he wore to his daughter's school plays and to church in cold weather, and he had a notebook in the left inside pocket and a folded receipt in the right. Floyd was 51 years old. He was a retired grain elevator operator. He was not large and he was not loud. His wife, Ruth, had offered to come with him, and he had told her it would probably not take long. He was right about that. The parcel came up midway through the morning. County record 44-118, 12 feet wide, half a mile long, a strip of land running north to south along the eastern edge of what had once been a proposed county road expansion. The expansion was canceled in 1971. The strip sat on the books with no buyer and no clear purpose. The auctioneer described it as a remnant. He used that word twice. The man in the front row laughed. His name was Gerald Pence. He managed the First National Bank branch on Kenton's Main Street. He had a Windsor knotted tie and a legal pad, and a pen he clicked open and close while the auctioneer read the parcel description. Gerald said, loud enough for the room to hear, that he wasn't sure what a man would do with 12 feet of nothing. One of the other 3 locals at the folding table smiled. The auctioneer started the bidding at $200. Nobody moved. He dropped to $150. Still nothing. Floyd raised his hand when the number reached $120. Gerald looked back. He looked at Floyd's coat. He looked at Floyd's notebook. He laughed again, short and flat. The way a man laughs when he is certain he understands something the other person does not. Nobody raised against Floyd. $120, 12 feet wide, half a mile long. The auctioneer brought the gavel down. Floyd walked to the clerk's table. He signed the form. He paid in cash. He took the receipt and folded it into 4ths and put it in the right pocket of his coat, next to the notebook. Gerald Pence walked past him toward the door and said, without turning around, that he hoped Floyd enjoyed his strip of nothing. Floyd said thank you. Gerald stopped. He looked back, trying to figure out if he was being mocked. Floyd's face gave him nothing to work with. Gerald left. The coffee pot was empty. The 4 locals folded their chairs. The auctioneer packed his sheet. In 9 minutes, the room was empty, and Floyd Mercer stood alone in front of the county map pinned to the corkboard on the far wall. He looked at the map for a long time. He put one finger on the strip. County record 44-118, 12 feet, half a mile, running straight north to south through the middle of what was, in 1983, just field and fence row. He stood there a moment longer. He did not write anything in his notebook. He did not need to. He already knew what he was looking at. He just needed to make sure he was the only one in that room who did. He turned off the light when he left, because nobody else was there to do it. He drove home. Ruth had lunch on the table. She asked how it went. Floyd said fine. She asked if he got what he went for. He said yes. She put the kettle on. Floyd took his coat off and hung it on the back of the chair. The receipt stayed in the pocket. He sat down and looked at the place on the county map he had sketched in his notebook the week before. The same thin north-south line, the same half-mile, the same 12-foot width that Gerald Pence had called a strip of nothing in front of 4 witnesses. Gerald Pence did not know what Floyd knew. Nobody in that room did, and Floyd had no intention of telling them. Before this gets even better, hit subscribe and stay until the end. What Floyd does next is the part nobody in Hardin County ever saw coming, and it only gets bigger from here. October 1983, Hardin County Public Library. A wooden reading table near the back window, stacked with county zoning records nobody had touched in years. Floyd had been coming here every Tuesday for 6 weeks. He was not in a hurry. He had spent 30 years reading grain invoices, and he knew that the numbers that mattered most were the ones buried at the bottom of the page, under the ones everyone else read first. He started with the 1971 road expansion records. County Road Project 18-C, proposed in 1968, funded in part by the state, canceled in March 1971 after a right-of-way dispute with a landowner on the north end. That much was public. That much anyone could have found. What they would have had to look harder to find was this. The cancellation resolution, passed by the county commissioners on March 14, 1971, voided the road project. But it did not dissolve the utility corridor designation attached to the right-of-way. The designation was still on the books. It had been on the books for 12 years when Floyd bought the strip. Floyd wrote the date in his notebook. March 14, 1971. He underlined it once. He flipped to the zoning index. The corridor designation, still active, meant the strip was not zoned residential, not zoned agricultural, and not classified as a remnant parcel under county code. It was classified as a utility infrastructure corridor. Floyd set his pen down. He sat with that for a moment. A utility infrastructure corridor could not be landlocked. It could not be absorbed into adjacent property by quiet title. And any developer who needed to run utilities, water, electrical conduit, fiber, pipeline, through the north-south axis of Hardin County's eastern farmland would at some point have to deal with whoever held title to County Record 44-118. Floyd was the person who held that title. He had paid $120 for it. He closed the zoning index. He carried it back to the shelf. He drove home. Ruth was at the kitchen table with a kettle already warm on the stove. Floyd spread his hand-drawn map across the table next to his notebook. The map showed the strip, the adjacent parcels, the old county road corridor, and the utility designation boundary in pencil. Ruth looked at it for a moment. She asked if the 12-foot piece was in the middle of something. Floyd said yes. She said, "Of what?" He said he wasn't sure yet, but he was going to find out. Ruth poured the water and didn't ask again. Over the next 8 months, Floyd drove past the strip 17 times. He did not stop and stand on it because he did not want anyone to look at him standing on it. He drove past slowly. He noted what changed and what didn't. In April 1984, survey flags appeared on the parcels north and south of his strip. In July 1984, a white truck with a Columbus plate parked on the county road adjacent to the north parcel for 3 hours. In September 1984, Floyd checked the county recorder's office and found that 2 parcels north of his strip had been acquired by an LLC called Heartland Horizon Properties. The agent of record was a Columbus law firm. Floyd wrote the LLC name in his notebook. He wrote the law firm name. He wrote the acquisition dates. He wrote the purchase prices, which were public record. $240,000 for the north parcel and $188,000 for the one just east of the strip. He drew a line in his notebook connecting the 2 purchases. Then he drew the strip between them, 12 feet wide, half a mile long. Right through the center of the corridor, anyone would need to connect those 2 parcels to the county's main utility trunk line on the western edge of the township. He looked at his hand-drawn map. The county had been taxing his strip every year, $11.40 annually, due each April. Floyd had paid it on time both years he'd owned it. He had kept both receipts in the same pocket as the original purchase receipt. He had 34 folded papers in that pocket by 1984. All of them tax receipts or filing confirmations. None of them glamorous. He opened the notebook to a fresh page. He wrote one number at the top, $120. Below it he wrote, "Corridor still active. LLC assembling parcels north and south. No recorded approach to strip. Below that, he wrote one more thing. They don't know they need it yet. He closed the notebook. He did not smile. He did not say anything out loud. He looked at the hand-drawn map one more time, folded it in half, and set it inside the notebook's back cover. The trap was not set by cleverness. It was set by 12 feet in one overlooked filing from 1971. Floyd turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. The first knock came on a Thursday afternoon in the spring of 1989, while Floyd was still in his work boots from the backfield. The man at the door was young, sharp coat, clean clipboard. He introduced himself as a representative of Heartland Horizon Properties and said he had a very fair offer for the narrow parcel Floyd had picked up at auction a few years back. He said the number out loud, $8,000. Floyd looked at the clipboard. He said, "No, thank you." The man said he wasn't sure Floyd understood. He said $8,000 for 12 feet of unused corridor was more than generous. Floyd said he understood just fine. He thanked the man for coming. He closed the door. That was it. 30 seconds. Floyd went back to his boots. Ruth was at the table when he came into the kitchen. She asked who it was. Floyd said a real estate man. She asked what he wanted. Floyd said the strip. She poured him coffee and didn't say anything else. Floyd mowed the strip twice a year, once in June, once in September. $11.40 to the county every April. He kept every receipt. He kept every mowing record in the same notebook. One line per year, date and condition of the markers. The notebook the spouse had given him for Christmas in 1982 was half full by 1993. In 1994, a man from the county assessor's office called Floyd on a Tuesday evening. He was formal, measured. He said the county had received an inquiry about the corridor designation on Floyd's parcel and wanted to discuss the possibility of the county reacquiring it for public infrastructure purposes. He said the county could offer $12,000. Floyd said he appreciated the call. He said no. The county man said he hoped Floyd would reconsider. Floyd said he'd give it thought. He didn't call back. In 1998, Floyd's daughter Ellen came home for a long weekend. She was 26, finishing a degree in property law at Ohio State. She asked Floyd about the strip because Ruth had mentioned it once, casually, and Ellen had gotten curious. Floyd showed her the notebook. She sat with it for a while. She asked about the 1971 corridor designation. Floyd said it was still active. She looked at him over the notebook and said quietly that she thought she understood what he was doing. Floyd said, "Good." She went back to school on Sunday. She didn't bring it up again at the time. Floyd noted it. He noted everything. By 2001, Heartland Horizon Properties had been absorbed into a larger entity called Harbor Development Partners. Harbor Development was a real estate subsidiary of a regional bank that had grown through 2 acquisitions since 1991. The bank was called Harbor National Holdings. Floyd did not learn this from the newspaper. He learned it from the county recorder's filings, which he checked every spring when he went to pay his property taxes. He wrote the acquisition chain in the notebook. Every name, every date, every successor in interest. The knock came again in the fall of 2003. This time the man was older, 3-piece suit. He carried a leather briefcase and accepted Floyd's offer of coffee before sitting at the kitchen table. His name was Richard Stahl. He was a lawyer for Harbor Development Partners. He said Harbor Development needed the corridor to complete a utility connection between 2 major parcels they had been assembling since 1984. Floyd said he knew. Stahl said Harbor Development was prepared to offer $140,000 for a permanent easement across the strip. Floyd wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. He said no. Stahl said the company had invested 14 years in significant capital assembling the surrounding parcels, and that Floyd's strip was the only piece they lacked. Floyd said he was aware of that. Stahl said no reasonable person would hold out against $140,000. Floyd looked at the coffee cup. He said he appreciated the offer. He said no. Stahl gathered his briefcase. He stood. He looked at the notebook on the table's edge. He did not ask what was in it. He should have. In a conference room in Columbus in early 2004, a project manager named Vince Carraro stood in front of a dry erase board with a red marker and circled one 12-foot strip on a property map. He told the room that the Mercer parcel was a problem. He said Floyd Mercer had no mortgage, no debt, no apparent financial pressure, and no interest in selling. One of the lawyers said they could try the county again. Vince said the county had already failed. A second lawyer said they could wait him out. Vince said Floyd was 62 years old and appeared to be in good health. Nobody said anything for a while. Vince capped the marker. He said they'd have to come back with better terms. Floyd paid his 2023 taxes in April, same as every year. $11.40. He got the receipt at the clerk's window and put it in the right pocket of the same coat he had worn to the auction in 1983. There were 41 folded papers in that pocket now. He drove home. Ruth had coffee on. He sat at the kitchen table and opened his notebook to the current year's page. He wrote the date and the tax amount, same as always. Then the phone rang. Floyd looked at the screen. Columbus area code, a number he did not recognize. He looked at it for 3 full rings. Then he picked it up. The voice on the other end was Richard Stahls. Not the younger version who had sat at Floyd's kitchen table in 2003. Older now, tighter, the voice of a lawyer who had run out of room and knew it. Stahls said Harbor National was prepared to make a final offer. He said $2 million. Floyd let the number sit in the air for a moment. Then he said, Ellen's number is in the county directory. He hung up. Ellen Mercer drove down from Columbus on a Saturday in late November 2023. She was 51. She had spent 23 years in property and infrastructure law, first at a firm in Cincinnati, then on her own. She drove a truck almost as old as Floyd's. She spread the permit file across the kitchen table. Next to it, she put the original deed from 1983, Floyd's notebook, and the corridor designation filing she had requested from the county archives the previous week. Ruth made coffee. She put 4 cups on the table without being asked and went to read in the other room. Ellen read in silence for 20 minutes. She asked Floyd one question. She said, "Did you pay taxes on it every single year?" Floyd said yes. She picked up her phone and called Richard Stahls' office. She left a message. She said the Mercer family was prepared to discuss terms. Not a sale. Terms, Stahl called back in 40 minutes. Harbor National's legal team filed an abandonment claim in January 2024. Their argument was that a 12-foot strip of land with no active improvements and no utility connections had been functionally abandoned by its owner, regardless of tax payments, and should revert to the county for infrastructure use. It was a reasonable-sounding argument. It was wrong. The hearing was held in the Hardin County Common Pleas courtroom on a Wednesday morning in February. 4 people sat on Harbor National's side. Floyd, Ellen, and Ruth sat on the other. Ellen placed 3 documents on the table. The first was the 1971 corridor designation filing, still active, never dissolved. The second was the canceled road resolution from March 14, 1971, which voided the road project but left the utility corridor classification intact on every subsequent county map through 2023. The third was 41 years of sequential tax receipts, 1 per year, each one paid in full, each one confirming the county itself had recognized and taxed the parcel as an active holding every single year of Floyd's ownership. Ellen said one sentence. She said the county cannot claim abandonment on a parcel it has billed annually for 4 decades. The judge looked at the tax receipts. He looked at the corridor designation. He ruled in under 90 seconds. Stahl reached for his phone before he had fully stood up from his chair. The negotiation lasted 3 weeks. Harbor National came in with a lump sum. $2.4 million, 1 payment, full release. Ellen said no. They said 2.6. Ellen said the family was not interested in a sale. She presented the terms Floyd had written in his notebook in the fall of 2003, the same night Stahl had left his kitchen table without asking what was inside it. A permanent utility easement across County Record 44-118, 12 feet wide, half a mile long, at a monthly payment of $4,200, adjusted annually for inflation, transferable in full to Floyd's heirs upon his death, in perpetuity for as long as the corridor remained in operational use, which Harbor National's own engineering projections showed would be no less than 40 years. Stahl pushed back on the inflation clause. Ellen said it was not negotiable. Stahl pushed back on the air transfer. Ellen said that wasn't negotiable either. On the 14th day, Harbor National's legal team accepted every term. Ellen called Floyd on a Thursday evening. She said, "They took it." Floyd said, "All right." She said the monthly payments would begin in April. He said, "Same month as the taxes." Ellen laughed. Floyd thanked her and hung up. Ruth was in the kitchen. She didn't ask what the call was about. She put the kettle on. The signing was held at the county clerk's office on a cold Friday morning in March 2024. Floyd wore the same coat. The same 41 receipts were in the right pocket. He added one more paper after the signing. The easement agreement, folded into fourths. 42 papers now. He walked to his truck. He sat in the driver's seat. He opened the notebook to the last written page, turned past it to the first blank one, and wrote 4 things. The date, the monthly payment amount, the year he bought the strip, $120, and below that, one line, $11.40 a year for 41 years, $4,200 a month for the rest of his life. He closed the notebook. He drove home. 3 days later, the Kenton Gazette ran a small item on page 7 about an easement agreement in the county's eastern farmland corridor. No names were used. The item was 4 sentences long. Richard Stahl read it at his desk in Columbus. He did not comment. He closed the paper. The 4 locals who had been at the auction in 1983 were not asked about it, but one of them, a retired feed store owner named Bert Kale, read the Gazette item and recognized the parcel number. Bert had been standing next to Gerald Pence when Gerald laughed. Bert did not say anything to anyone. He just sat for a while. Some men look at 12 feet of land and see nothing. Floyd Mercer looked at 12 feet of land and saw 41 years of patience paying $4,200 a month. If you were Floyd, would you have taken the $2.4 million all at once or held for the monthly deal that pays for the rest of your life? Drop your answer below. And if you made it this far, you already think the way Floyd thought? So subscribe, because the next one is just as good.